I can still picture it at morning clear as day, even though it's been over a decade now. The air was crisp with the by early on. A kind makes your breath fall good just lose a step out truck. My brother Josh and I driven from Charleston to tackle a Misty Ridge Trail and hard Appalachian. At morn our first time in Eve Moons, he'd known a hearing stories from our grandpa about the old logging paths of folks who'd gone missing back in the day, swallowed up by a fog at a underbrush. But those were just tales of spookies around the campfire. Joss, always the winter, picked this trail because the youth in the rear, old looking valleys that stretched like a rumpled green bite. He was the photographer in the fog, while he walked that old night card at of an stencher at his og. Me? Oh, just a one for the company, me break from the grind of my job at the mill. We parked at the trailhead around 7, the lot empty except for a rusted out Jeep that looked like it hadn't moved in weeks. The signpost was withered, a page flaking off the words Misty Ridge Trail, 8 miles round trip. We shouldered our packs, mine sound as it were, his with Esther Lindsay's, and started up the path, leaves crunching under our boots like brittle bones. The trail clawed steadily at first, wind and through a thick stand of oaks and maples, their branches arching overhead to form a canopy that filtered the sunlight into dappled patches on the ground. Josh's and I spirits, chatting about Lee's gids who waved down Ashfield. Man, he's bright as some mess, he left, his voice echoing faintly off the trees. One of me clawing tree for an aerial shot. I told her, Lee, photographer, not squirrel. I chuckled along, but even then, something nagged at me. The woods were too quiet. No bird song, no rustle of squirrels in the leaves. Just the steady rhythm of our footsteps and an occasional snap of a twig. I'd higged plenty of trails in these parts, but Misty Ridge felt different that day, like the mountains were holding their breath, waiting for some. The fog started rolling in via our hut, thick and clammy, clean into our jackets and beating on our hair. It wasn't unusual for Appalachia. Mist could come out nowhere to the May Pass and maze. The thick fog wait to, muffling sounds and born edges of awe. We paused a switchback to catch our breath, and Josh pointed out a cluster of mushrooms sprout from afar and hour. A car's pair and vein a os hen. Creel ends, he said, snabba quick photo. I nodded, but my eyes kept darting to the trees, half expecting to see movement in the haze. We pushed on, the trail narrow and as it hugged decided a ridge. The air grew colder, carrying that earthy sin of damp soil and decaying leaves. The con it seeps into your clothes and lingers for days. Josh was led by through paces, his pat bouncing lightly as he hummed some old bluegrass tune under his breath. We talked about our childhood a bit, how Dad used to take us camping up near Dolly Sides, teaching us to read the land, spot animal tracks, build a fire without matches. Remember the time we got lost for now? Josh said, glancing back with a grin. Dad could let us all put on a plan. I smiled. I demeanor stirred her knees in me. These moms had a way of playing tricks, making it think it knew when it didn't. The fog thickened as we neared the halfway point, reducing visibility on me 20 feet. The path was marked by faint blazes in the trees, orange pictures with a beers at the sandies. I thought a prig on about her neck, but wound being white. When I turned, I was never sworn mist in the dark shades of trust in ray. Around noon, we found a spot a small stream that trickled down from the ridge. Its water clear and cold with smooth stones. It was a natural break point with a flat rock big enough for both of us to sit. The impact lunch, peanut butter sandwiches, apples, a thermos of coffee. Josh been his out gusto, crumbs scattered in his lap. This is living, bro, he said, gesturing the mule, though the fog skewered most of her. We joked about the local legend Rappa used to spin, tales of feral folks living off the bridge in these hills, descendants of old miners who had gone wild after the cold dried up. You think they're out there watching us right now? Josh teased, wetting his eyebrows. I laughed off. Of quiet pressed in, unbroken except for faint gurgle stream. No wind, no wildlife, just a heavy sounds, so on heartbeats on too loud. After eating, jaw stirred up, strutting towards. Hey, I'm gonna head up to the overlook real quick. Get some shots before the fog lifts. Be right back, 5 minutes tops. He grabbed his comrade, slung around his neck. It domes up as disappeared to mist along a faint side path that led to the cliff's edge. I nodded, finishing my apple and leaning back against a tree, content to wait. Minutes ticked by. I checked my watch, 10 past. No big deal, Josh always got lost in his photography. I got his name once, my voice swallowed by fog, coming back as a muted echo. 15 minutes. Ice low, brushing out my pants, and showing again, low this time. Josh, Igu? Nothing. A knot formed in my gut, a first twinge of worry. I saw a pat and fall that rooted Igu, but wrong sloping up toward the reed. Myth of a wilk, cold as oil. If footprints are clear, soft dirt, boot tritely stray. I followed them for maybe 50 yards, calling out every few steps. The trail opened up to the overlook, a sheer drop of the panoramic views lost in the haze that day. The footprints continued to edge, and just stalled. No scuff marks, no sound of sly stall. Just Indy as if it still all into nothing. My heart hailed in my chest. Jaws, I yelled, pay over the cliff, far near the bomb. A drop of at least 200 feet on the jagged rocks. No body, no broken branches below. Panic clawed up my throat. I backtracked, thinking maybe he'd circled around, but the prince didn't deviate. I shouted until my voice cracked. The echoes mocked at me from the ridge. Hours blurred together after that. I don't remember exactly how long I searched alone, circling the area, pushing through brambles that tore at my sleeves, yelling his name until I was hoarse. The fought and lift, if anything, grew denser, turned the woods into a labyrinth. My phone had no signal, of course. He's not as notorious as desert. I stumbled back down the trail, legs shaking, until I reached the parking lot around dusk. The wasp jeep was still there, solid settled. I walked to the nearest radio station, bounded by vanishing footprints stopped at the edge. The rangers were kind but skeptical at first. People get turned around all the time, they said. But when I insisted, they mobilized a search team. That night, I sat in a dingy motel room in the nearest town, staring at the wall, replaying every moment. The what-if story in. What if I'd gone with him? What if we turned back when fog rolled in? The search began first light the next day. A dozen rangers, volunteers, even a couple of dogs. I led them back up the trail, the mist finally thinning under a weak sun. We retraced our steps to a stream and to the overlook. A footprint stood there, pristine in the dirt, ending abruptly at the cliff. The lead ranger, a grizzled guy named Alan, thick beard, knelt down, Zam. No sign of a fall, he muttered, shining the flashlight over the head. Ground stable here, no loose rocks. A dog sniffed around, but lost the scent right where Prince stood, wine circular confusion. We found out, coned underbrush, checking crevices, the hollows were so my for in. I was turned to a full deer, too. Helicopters rose array, a rose chucking the air like a thor. Luke was drawn in, saying stores of coffee, base cup, whispers about the ridge's history, how it had claimed hikers before. One timer, I saw Hunter's cat, pulled me aside. These mans got pockets, he says softly, places we world thins out. Folks step in, don't step out. I wrist about the superstition, his words burrowing, feigned dread. On the third day, they found Kim. It was wedged in a cluster of roots about 10 feet from the cliff's edge, half buried in leaves as if it had been tossed there. The lens was shattered, spider-webbed cracks across the glass, but the body was intact. My hands trembled as I handed it to Harlem. We'll get the card developed, he promised, clapping a hand on my shoulder. The search dragged on for a week, told her. the health fade with each empty day. No clothes, new blood, no son's animal attack, just that eerie absence. Back home, I poured over fools from the card most the rangers returned. Most are mundane, trees, mushrooms, a stream. But the last one, God, that last one, tossed that ray raw we wander off. It soothed the overlay shroud and mist, in the foreground a blurred sallow, tall, indistinct, a figure standing just out of focus. It could have been a tree trunk, a rock formation, or something else. A shapeless human eye, elongate, a smudge whose care shaken. A stare for hours zooming in to pixels dissolved in the noise. With a puridoy, my mind see what rock, or a trotch comped or something in his final moments. Life ground on after that, but it wasn't the same. I quit the meal job, couldn't focus with the constant replay in my head. Moved to a small cabin in the end of meds, ironically, closer to a place that took him, like I was drawn back. Nights at worst, I lie awake, listen to the wind of the pines, imagine Kay's whispers from the reeds. What hidden to Jaws? Did he slid into some in crevice the so to mist? A sinkhole camouflaged by fog? Or was it something suddenly, the mountain's way of claiming what wanders too far? I'd gone back twice, it's everyone's advice. First time alone, far unseen footprints. Now fade, but still traceable in my memory. The ridge alive, the mist coiling left fingers, and I swear a faint sutter click, like a camera snapping in the distance. Oboted, hot plumbing. The second time was a friend, but he bailed halfway, spooked by a silence. I pushed on to the overlook, staring into the void where a prince ended. No answers, just that quiet dread building layer by layer until it smothers you. It's been years, but not knowing festers like an open wound. Every autumn, when the leaves turn and the fall creeps in, I feel the strongest. That pull, that lingering chill in my bones. The Appalachians keep their secrets buried deep. A recent avis of roots and rain. Joss is out there somewhere, or nowhere, and the rid watches, waiting for nicked food water off the pine. I avoid trails now, chitter modes, but chintones in the bare might. I wonder if I ain't the following those vanishing footsteps myself, stepping into a mist and never coming back. The fear doesn't fade, it just settles in, a constant companion, whispering that the mountains are hungry, and they don't always give back what they take. It had been a rough year, the kind that grind you down until you're just going through emotions. Lost my job at the auto plant in Dunton, then Ma passed after a long fight with cancer, leaving me rattling around that empty house like a ghost myself. I need to get away, clear my head, so I pit the shadowed high pine. It's one of those lesser-known truths in the West Virginia Appalachians, tucked away in the Monongahela National Forest, not far from Elkins. Folks don't talk much about it. Too overgrown, too remote for the weekend crowds. I'd read about it in an old hiking guide, drawn to the promise of solitude under a canopy so thick it blocks out the sun even at high noon. Pack light, a day pack with water, energy bars, a map, compass, and a pocket knife. No tent, no overnight gear, just a day hike to shake off the weight pressing on my chest. I drove out early that Saturday morning in late September, the roads winding through mist-shrouded hills, past faded barns and rusted fences. The trailhead was unmarked, just the pull-off by a gravel road with a faint dirt path disappearing into the woods. No other cars, no signs of life. Perfect, I thought, slinging my pack over my shoulder and stepping into the trees. The air hit me first, cool and damp, carrying the scent of moss and rotten leaves, like a arrow was breathing out secrets. The path was narrow, barely one for one person, flanked by dense underbrush tugged at my jeans like unseen fingers. Ferns and briars choked the edges, and overhead the branches intertwined the green vault that filtered light into a perpetual twilight. It was quiet as I expected. No birds chirping, no squirrels scutting the trunks. just the soft crunch of my boots on the strewn ground, and the occasional drip of moisture from the leaves. I'd hiked alone before, but this felt different, more isolating, like the force was closing in behind me, erasing my tracks as I went. I shook off the thought, focusing on my breathing, in and out, letting the rhythm pull me deeper. The trail dipped into the hollow proper after about a mile, the ground sloping downward into a shaded valley where the air was thicker, heavier with humidity. Sunbeams pierced the canopy in rare shafts, illuminating dust motes that danced like tiny spirits. I paused to sip water, leaning against the gnarled oak, its bark rough and etched with what looked like old carvings, initials maybe, or symbols worn smooth by time. The solids pressed in, broken only by faint rustle wind high above, too far to reach me down here. Pushing on, I felt the cell sipped around a 2-mile mark. The path wound tighter, twisted through thicker growth, and that's when I heard it. Faint echoes drifted from ahead. Voices maybe, or laughter, light and distant, like kids playing in a far-off field. It didn't make sense. This trail was supposed to be empty, and the hollow's geography should muffle sounds, not carry them. I stopped, cocking my head, strained to listen. There was again, murmur in the state, rising and falling like a conversation just out of earshot. "Hello?" I called out. My voice sounded flat and absorbed by the trees. No answer. The echoes faded, leaving only the quiet hum of insects I hadn't noticed before. I shrugged it off. Probably went through the leaves, or my mind playing tricks after months of stress. These mountains have a way of amplifying loneliness, turning it odds into thorns. I kept walking, the underbrush scraping lightning, the whispers across my screen. A trail opened slimely into a small clearing, maybe 20 feet across, bounded by an old weathered signpost half buried in vines. The wood was splintered, the paint long gone, but I could make out faded letters, shadowed hollow, proceed at own risk. Rosk, the guidebook hadn't mentioned that. I chuckled nervously, but the sound died in my throat. That's when I pulled out my compass to check my parents. The needle spun wildly, north flipping erratically from one direction to another, like it was confused or broken. I tapped it against my palm, shook it, nothing. I'd had it for years, reliable as anything, but now it danced like a leaf in a storm. Magnetic in affairs, maybe. These hills are full of old iron deposits from mining days. A pockety, relying on a mine stays. But the clearance felt off, the light dimmer than it should be from midday. The vines on the signpost swayed gently, though there was no breeze down here. I pressed down. Here south it was just a glitch, nothing more. The path gnawed again, the canopy cloven tighter, plunging me into deeper shadow. Trail markers, those orange blazes on trees, started appearing less frequently, faded and chipped. Then they vanished altogether, swallowed by a foliage as if the forest had reclaimed them. I backtracked a few steps, heart picking up pace, but the last marker I'd seen was gone too, hidden behind a curtain ivy that hadn't been there before, or had? Doubt crept in, slow and insidious, like the mist starting a coil at my feet. Dusk wasn't far off. I checked my watch, surprised at how time had slipped away. The hollow grew cooler, the air thickening with that pre-evening chill that seeps into your bones. Panic flitted at the edges of my mind, but I pushed it down, forcing logic, retraced doubts, stay calm. I turned around, following that was the way back, but the path looked altered, twisted somehow. Branches out pushed aside earlier now blocked the trail, and the underbrush seemed denser, clawing at my legs with thorny insistence. "Hello? Anyone out there?" I shouted, louder this time. My voice echoed back, but distorted, higher pitched, almost mocking, like someone mimicking me from the trees. "Hello? Hello? Anyone?" The trio off into giggles, faint and eerie, not quite human. I froze, sweat prickling my skin despite the cold. Wind? Animals? But no, it sounded too much like voices, deliberate and close. I spun around, scanning the shadows, but saw nothing, just endless green and gray, the hollow's walls rising steep on either side like a natural trap. My breath came quicker now, shallow bursts as I hurried back, or where a hoter spirit. The mist thickened, rising from the ground in tendrils that wrapped around my ankles, making the path slick and treacherous. Roots tripped me twice, sending me sprawling into the dirt, palms stinging. Each time I got up, the echoes returned, my own footsteps rebounding oddly, as if doubled by invisible companions. Stop it, I muttered to myself, or maybe to whatever was out there. The laughter came again, closer this time, from beyond a thicket to my left. I veered right, crashing through brush that tore at my shirt, drawing thin lines of blood on my arms. The hollow felt alive, shifting underfoot, the ground soft and yielding like it might give way. Old stories from my childhood surface unbidden, tales Grandpa told about Pharaoh people in these hills, descendants of runaway slaves of moonshiners who'd gone wild, living off the land, avoid outsiders. They weren't monsters, these folks twisted by isolation, watching from the shadows. But those were just legends, right? Grounded in reality maybe, but not this, not echoes that mimic and paths that change. Night fell faster than I anticipated, the canopy accelerating the darkness until I could barely see my hand in front of my face. I fumbled from a flashlight. Thank God I'd packed it. Its beam cut in narrow swats of glow. Shadows thanks to the echoes chase the kubi trees, feeders hunker low. Macaws grew desperate. Help, anyone there? Our responses gained a warp, stretched and winds, shackles that raised the hairs of her neck. It sounded like multiple voices now, overlapping, circling you. Rang you, boy, pack bunty gives me back, worth a ride. But his whip my face, but didn't stop. The hollow narrowed, walls closing in, until I was squeezing through a ravine, rocks scraping my sides. The echoes pursued, growing fainter but never stopping, like the forest was towing with me, herding me deeper. Exhaustion hit like a wall, legs burning, lungs aching. I collapsed against the boulder, flashlight trembling in my grip, sweeping the beam rimmed. Nothing, just endless woods, indifferent and diced. I don't remember much after that. Flashes, stumbling through the dark, the mist turned into rain that soaked me through, voices fading into the pattern of drops. Then light, headlights, voices, real ones this time, calling my name. I woke up in my hospital bed, Elkins, IVMR, rangers and doctors suffering. I'd found my backpack 3 days later, untouched by weather, sitting neatly in that clearing with the signpost. But me? A local hunter stumbled across me miles off trail, delirious and hypothermic, babbling about shifting paths and laughing shadows. Search parties had combed hollow facades of foul play, footprints, chems, found nothing. No evidence of anyone else out there. A doctor's chumped it up to dehydration, exposure, maybe a panic attack triggered by grief. These mons can play tricks on a man's mind, one ranger said, patting my shoulder like I was a kid. I nodded, but I knew better. The compass worked fine when they tested it later, and the echoes, they weren't in my head. It's been 2 years now, but the hollow lingers. I moved away, to a city apartment where the noise drowns out the quiet, but nights bring it back. Awake disoriented, sheets tangled, feeling like part of me is still lost in no shadows, chopped in loop with the stilted cause in vanishing markers. What pulls people into nothingness on these trails? Is it the land itself, ancient and resentful, erasing your presence bit by bit? Or something more human, ferial souls guarding their domain with whispers and I avoid the woods now, stick to paved paths, but the dread burrows deep, unspoken and real. Fontans and rush before dawn, I hear a faint laugh from a vince or a street below, mimicking a breath. I wonder if I ever would go out, or if the hollow just let me go, waiting for the day it calls me back. The confusion net a phase, a disselved in, a sorrowful weight, reminded me how thin the line is between alone and erased. Sarah and I had been together for 3 years when we decided to celebrate our anniversary with a hike on the Forgotten Overlook Trail. Who'd heard you really teach some of across an old forum posts raving of the views, how the trail wound up through the Appalachian valleys in eastern Kentucky, over a panorama that made me feel like you was standing on the edge of the world. "I'll be remembered," she said, her eyes lighting up as she scrolled through gray photos on her phone. I wasn't much of a hiker, more the type to spend weekends tinkering with my truck or watching football. But Sarah had a way of pulling me into her adventures. She was an artist, always sketching wildflowers or abandoned barns, capturing the quiet beauty of these hills we called home. We met a local art fair in Lexington, and ever since, she'd been my anchor to the ups and downs, jawed stresses, Fenley drawings. This hike felt like a reset, a chance to reconnect away from the noise. We packed light, sunglasses, water, our sketch pad and pencils, my old binoculars to spot you with. I supplied it with a small flask of whiskey for a toast at the top. We left before dawn from our apartment in Hayville, a dry 10 deeper into the moors, where the woods know in the south of the fee. The trail was tucked off the Grother Road, unmarked, except for a weathered wooden sign half hidden by kuzu vines. We parked the car around 5:30, the sky still dark but edged with a faint glow in the east. The air was cool and eavy, mist rising from the ground with breath from some sleeping giant buried in the earth. It carried the familiar Appalachian scent, damp soil mixed with decaying leaves, a hint of pine sharpness underneath. Sarah zipped off her jacket, abrupt visible in the beam of flashlight. "Ready?" she asked, grinning as she shouldered her pack. I'll knock, locking the car, though I hear who bar. The path stirred gentle, a dirt track wandered through stand hemlocks, the kneel soft underfoot. We'd walked side by side at first, our hands brushing occasionally, tweaking about nothing and everything. Grants to the future, a bigger place maybe, K Sunday. Sarah laughed at our lease commission, a mirror for a coffee shop that kept changing themes. Her voice cut through the quiet, warm and light, echoing softly off the trees. But as we climbed higher, the trail steepened, forcing us into single file. She took the lead, her ponytail swinging with each step, turning back now and then to point out a cluster of mushrooms or a twisted root that looked like a face. The mist thickened as the sun crept up, not burying off like a shed, but lingering in the valleys below, turning the world into a hazy dreamscape. The forest closed in, branches arching overhead like a cathedral going wide, filtering the light into dim shadows that danced on the ground. It was quiet and spoken, no word song greeting the dawn, just the occasional whirl of the leaves in the breeze we couldn't feel down here. I heard stories about these trails from locals at the diner. I've Forgotten Overlook God's name for hikers who wander off and were never seen again, choked up to falls or getting lost in the fog. But these were tall tales, exaggerate of beers. Sarah dismissed them with a way he mentioned it the night before. "People always say ghosts to make it exciting," she'd say, and to do for nature being neater. Stew as we ascend, a fall unease settled in the gut that the monks were watering, indifferent to our low adversary jawed. The air grew cool, clinging to our skin, and the scented decay strengthened, as if the earth was exhaling secrets from hidden hollows. We stopped our halfway up for water, sitting among fallen logs slit with moss. Sarah pulled out a sketch pad, jotting quick lines of the view, a glimpse of rolling hills through a break in the trays. "Look at the light," she murmured, "at pencil fine." I watched her, the way her brow furrowed in concentration, and felt the swell of contentment. This was well over. The way she saw beauty in the ordinary, pulled it out for the rest of us to see. We shared the granola bar, to crunch loud and stews, and talked about our first date, how nervous I'd been pick her up and be at Ford. She teased me about spilling coffee on my shirt, her laughter building out genuine and free. And then, the quiet pressed in around us, unbroken except for our voices. No squalls towering, no wind sighed through the pines. It was like the forest had gone still, holding its breath. I glanced at my watch, 7 o'clock now, the sun higher, but the mist still thick below. "We should keep Mulo," I say, "Barup." She nodded, tucking pad away, and we continued, the trail narrower further, roots snaking across the path like veins. As we neared the overlook, the climb never dulled, the trees thinned to reveal patches of sky. the air lined with pay faint whisper weighing the was of the leaves away. Sarah quickened her pace at sight. I can see it, she called back, pointing ahead where the path opened onto a rocky outcrop. The Forgotten Overlook lived up to its hype, even through the lingering haze. The valley stretched out below like a crumpled quilt, the greens and browns. Rivers threatened silver in the distance. We stood there for a moment, arms around each other, catching her breath. "Worth the hike?" she asked, tilting her head up to me. I kissed her forehead. "Absolutely." She pulled out a sketch pad again, flipping to a fresh page. "The light's perfect right now. I need a better angle." She eyed a cluster of borders off to the side, a few steps from the main path, where the view swept unobstructed. "Just a min, Susak, flashing a smod, always motedney." She stepped off the tray, weaving behind the rocks, her form partially skewered by the jagged stones. I hummed softly, a hobbit when she drew, then to scratch a pencil on paper. A lead against the tree, scrolling was spores out of fume, snuffed had heard from earlier, the mist trailed the train. Thick no spy, by few by flanked, enough to check the ton, age just teen. Mins picked bud, slide, then peering. "Sarah, he good?" I called, not worried yet, just curious. No answer, but the wind picked up slightly, carrying a low murmur that could have been her voice or just the breeze through crevices. I pocketed my phone, stepping toward the boulders. "Babe?" Round in the cluster, I expected to see her perched on a rock, lost in her heart. But she wasn't there. The overlook stretched empty, the drop-off sheer and unforgiving. My heart skipped. "Sarah." Louder now, scanning the area. Her sketch pad lay open on the ground near the edge, pages fluttering in the wind. I picked it up, hands suddenly cold. The drawing was half done, a ruck outlining the valleys, lies shaky, uneven, as if her hand had trembled mid-stroke. The pencil lay afide, tip broken. No sign of her. No footprints scuffing the dirt beyond the boughs, no broken branches, no coffee echoing from below. Pine hit her cold way. I saw her name, voice crying as it burst off the mice. "Sarah, where are you?" Up here over the edge, stone churned a Virgo. The drop was a width 100 feet to a tail underbrush and thorn. No body, no flash of her red jacket, just mist swirling in the void. I circled the area, pushing through scrub, clawed malaise, kai to the board. The whistler starred then. Maybe they'd been there all along, masked by a chair. These sounds in the wind let distant voices murmur an instant word, rising and falling. I told myself it was imagination, the adrenaline then jets, but they persisted, pulling at the edges of my hearing. I backchecked down the trail a ways, thinking maybe she'd wander off for a better spot. The path is empty, the forest silent as a tomb. My phone had no signal, the bars vanished. I went back to the old, yelling again, the echoes mocking me from the vines. Hours blurred, who searched along, combing the borders, peering every crevice, calling to a horse. The sun climbed higher, burning off some mist, but the overlook remained eerily still. No other hikers appeared. This trail wasn't popular. Finally, Les Schagel, I stumbled back onto a car, drawing a mat to the next town over. The rangers listened, faces grim, and mobilized quickly. "Happens more than inked," one said, an older guy with a salt pepper beard. "Fall plays tricks, he'll step roll." But I insisted, no squeal, no fall. Search parties find out that afternoon, boots trumping the trail, dogs barking. Helicopters thumped overhead, their shadows sweeping the ridges. I joined them, pointing out the spot, showing the sketch pad. Volunteers from town came too, muttering over thermoses of coffee. That's when the story surfaced. A old woman with a walking stick pulled me aside. "The whispers," she said softly, eyes done. "Who's here out there? Other used pies into hikers. Boggarts." She knocked. "Who's in the world when the one hiked then?" My older went that way in 72, never falling. Others chimed in. Hikers vanished in mid-stride, search dogs refusing to trike, whispers in the wind sounded like alert ones calling. I lingered at the interviews, clutching her sketch pad like a talisman. "Mites in the mood dug," Lay a week we planed, the way she'd vanished behind those rocks, the shaky lines on the page. What had interrupted her? A slip or something else? Those whispers coaxing her further. I started hearing him asleep, faint calls that sounded like Sarah's voice. Just a minute, come see. At wake sweating, heart pounding, the room spinning. Weeks turned to month. The official search scaled back. Resources loon, they've said. Volunteers drifted away. I quit my job, couldn't focus with the constant ache. Moved back in with my folks for a bit, but their pitying looks drove me out. I pored over maps, hiked nearby trails alone, searching for clues. I returned to the Forgotten Overlook at dawn, mist rising just like that day. Stay at the boughs, listening. The whispers came again, soft and insistent, weaving through the wind like thread. Sarah's law, my mind breaking. I flared, vowing never to return. But the poor lingers, a quiet erosion. I avoid trails now, stick to say parts. The dreams drag me back, her voice calling from the mist, drawing me to the edge. What happened to her? A hidden crevice swallowing her whole? Or the mountain's indifferent claim, erasing her without trace? The sorrow never closes. It festers, a confusion that whispers in the quiet moments, reminding me how fragile we are against these ancient hills. Sometimes, staring at her sketch, those shaky lines blur with tears, and I wonder if she's still out there, waiting in the pockets, her voice carried on the wind, pulling me home. I'm in Mornington High School, but when we thick class to fish and the creeks are utterly kenny. Life pulleth apart there. He moved Nashua for music giver not a panda. In the fail, moth-eaten heels, working construction tar that left my hands custom or ache. Worker in Turstos erratic text, parts in catch up. I took his divorce to phone and me happy. Need a reset, my, he said over the phone, voice rough from too many smokes. Let's hit a trail, like old times. I suggested the Twilight Gorge Route, a rugged path of the Cumberland Plateau hugged rid and steep-walled cans. Not too touristy, Vishra Appalachia, tar cliffs, whispery war, and I deep grain psalms that smothers a hole. It was meant to be a rioi. I tries to reconnect with the terrain me go at love and fume, it o measure. We met at the trailhead late afternoon that October day, the sun already dipping low, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers across the gravel lot. More pull-ups be up Subaru, grin as it stood out, clapping me on the back. You still build like a bourgeois, he laughed. Those eyes had the hollow look divorce leaves behind. We shored our pats, lay lows, since it was just a few miles in or before dark. Water, snacks, a flashlight each. The air was crisp, laced with the scent of wet stone and fallen leaves, the kind that crunch underfoot like old paper. The path started easy, descended gently to a gorge. The river mirrored low, Hosika shared between rocks. Water sandstone rose on me side. They moss and firs, their surfaces etched by centuries of wind and war. Marchand as of what, filling the quiet with stories of his ex, the custody battles, how he started playing guitar again to cope. Life changes, you know, gotta roll with it, he said, kicking a pebble that skittered ahead. I nod, sitter bits about my onrod, the layers at the side, the MP staring at the TV. The gorge narrowed as we went deeper, the path hugging the river back, slick in places from spray. Sunlight slanted through the canopy above, turning the water to gold flecks, but shadows pooled in the crevices, cool and unmoving. Unpeaceful in first, and isolation way gray. These mauve where turned solitude and so heavy, away all a stone pressing down. We'd hiked maybe a mile when the white gun shay, the sun sinking faster behind the ridge, painting the gorge in deeper in hues orange and purple. The river's murmur grew louder here, echoing off the walls in a constant low rumble that masked smaller sounds. Mark was missing, talking about a new job prospect in Knoxville. We paused. Shoes loose, he said, nearly the Fern Car Bangor path did coastal wall. The ferns with thick bare, othery and dot, costern and round exposed roots lay marine curtain. I walked a few seconds hard, glancing up at a smork. Don't fall on, sea boy, he chuckled, fumbling with his lace, the river lapping gently at the stones below. I turned to watch the waterfall moment, spotting a trout flash silver in the current. When the lit bout, more than 10 seconds later, he was gone, just vanished. The spum he nose empty, furs undisturbed, no splash, no cry, my heart stirred. Mark? I called, voice swallowed by the gorgeous echo. I stoned back, scudding the bank. His bootlace dangled from a low branch, swaying slightly as if just released, but no footprints led away, no stuffs in the mud, no bent frowns. It was like the ground had opened up and pulled him under, silent and sameless. Confusion at first, and cold spike of fear. Mart, the funny, I shall, pushing through furs, and parting the greenery. The bangle solid, no holes, no legacy gustle or the sound. The river flowed steady below, maybe 3 feet down, clear enough to see the pebbled bottom. No body turned it in the current. I yelled again, his name bouncing off the walls, coming back distorted, mocking. The gorge velklasse in, those steep sides pressing in, shadows linking like bars. I searched frantically, backtracking a dozen yards, then bored, calling to him throat ate. No sign, his peg going too, as if he'd never been there. Panic cloud up, breath coming short. These hills are riddled with hidden dangers, sinkholes from old mines, undercut banks that collapse without warning. They've been no warning, no dust, just erasure. The life fade quicker now. Twilight saw the shroud turn red ache. A funnel from flashlight, being jarring over furs, catching glints of water droplets. Every rustle, a leaf falling, a pedal shifting, set my post racing, a magic and stomping out, laughing off. And nothing. The snooze was unnatural. The river's mirror the only sound that the gore to hold his breath, guarding the secret. I don't know how long I surfed alone, maybe an hour, legs north scurvy along the bank, voice raw. Dust deep in the night, stars pricking the nose to the sky above. My phone there's no bars, of course, the gorge a diz on it ever since. I had to get help. Stole back the way we come, flash white sweeping path. A half-it spigot seen whim of the trail hair, sheepish grin face. And north in here, save for our cars, is Subaru sound moo. I drove to the nearest ranger station, 30 miles away, babbling to the night shift guy about my friend vanishing mid-tie. He reeled in, this Hildeklub procedure bound. We'll go team out first light, he say, offering coffee tasting like ice. Bad night, oh, my chocker pa. Sleep evade me. Mary fly, Mike and Meath kids, daring each other across wicked views, mouthing the ghost stories of my feral folk in the halls, wild men who shun society and lured wonders away. Just letters, wooed real disappearances from lawn days. In dark, they felt plausible, those unseen eyes watching from cracks in the wake. Down but the rangers, 4 of them, stereotypes of walkie-talkies and social diet, and led them thought down the trail. Adored hers one to mourn delay, missed wise and from the river lay smoke. We reached the sway, a bootlace stood dangling untouched. Right here, I said, voice steady but hand shaken. The lead ranger, a one named Ellis with a new nonsense ponytail, knelt where he'd been, probing soil. Ground fur, no signs of society. A guard sniffed eerily first, tear the wagon, but then wide, circling furs before he set on, or fain shut free. Send just ends, one-handled mud, fine. They find out, probing crevices in the walls, dragging the river with hooks. Helicopters arrived by noon, dumping low, stirring the water in the froth. Volunteers trickled in, locals with ATVs, faces at mon resignation. Sandwiches, base camp, stores emerged. A whole timer with tobacco-stained beer leaned in. Twilight Gorge go hister, folks go in, then come out. Whisper says the river spirits, but I reckon as them wild ones, pharaohs hadn't in the cracks, pulling people under for whatever reason. He spat. My cousin's boy diverged here, 98. Phil sat downstream, nothing else. I nigh, drag quelly tighter. No spirits, to the rearers of my enten heels, riddle the unseen pitfalls, human of wise. The search bred into that to know, then even. They found his water bottle around dusk, floating downstream a quarter-mile, cap screwed tight, label pristine. No dents, no mud, like it'd been placed there gently. Though we both knew the current of the stroll if they carried the far out a nosen stream. No other traces, no cull snared on browntas, no blah rocks. The dogs kept losing scent, antlers babbled. As night fell again, they called for a day, promising a resume. I've stayed a motel in Tom, walls din of he trots rumbly eye. Sleek hang in fits, dreams marred kneeling, then bizarre in the mist, a voice echoing faint and pleading from the gorge walls. Wook swin, a room spin, a cry unease, Esther in my right. Where room away, a wind sinkhole collapsing softly, or so and so, furrow hands reaching from furs, muffle cry. The not known burrow deep, turning every shadow suspect. Days blur, search expand, news crews ride, chems and questions. The nos they said, there's no books poised. O.P. nummy, the bullies deter Michaelons, mystery in the gorge. Ferns called, Ofri condoles a fought premature. Martzak showed up, Oz red, Blaine knee between sides. The rangers proved every inch, divers in a river, climbers on the walls, but the gorge gave nothing back. After a week, they scaled down, sign weather turning. We'll keep an eye out, and say, Barton's closure. I drove home long, is Subaru to the Empire. Laver huned and friars, wood called, beers pined, but the dray lingered, nights bringing shard. I law wait, reclaim vash, lay swaying like a toad. Says she saw me, rustle outside window, a creep behind my house murmuring like the weir. Went back once, months later, lone twilight. The gorge loomed unchanged, pie slick, air thick. At the spy, a note, fingers in ferns, listen. A face splash downstream, or maduation. Boat to bike, hard hammering. It's been years, but the mystery factors, a quiet unease that colors everything. I avoid Gorthithna, stick to open field, but the pool remains. That unspleen will draw the heels, guarding the victims in silence. Malt's gone, a race without struggle, and the terror is in the realism. No monsters, just the indifferent swallow of these ancient lands. Southars, driving wander rows, I hear echoes in the wind. Fake chats about life changes, and wonder he's still out there, wandering unseen crevices, or the twilight claimed him holy. A soul new phase, a silver mist, leave me drift in confusion. Every rustle of worry, a grab me up, sight and wane. Tim was 8 that summer, full of that boundless energy only kids have, the kind that makes every rock a treasure and every bug a discovery. I promised him a hike for a week, something easy, get him away from the screens and into the fresh air of the Appalachians we call home. Echo Valley seemed perfect. A gentle trail in Shenandoah Range, known for its rolly slopes carved from wallflowers, the kind of place families go for picnics and photos. No steep drops, no treacherous terrain, just a loop that wound through meadows and light woods, with views at a valley below where the echoes played tricks on your voice. We live in small town your Varho's voice, me working as a mechanic at the local garage. His mom gone since he was 3 from a car accident that still twisted my girl I thought out. It was just us. I tried to make up for these little adventures. Packed a backpack with PB&J sandwiches, juice boxes, and his favorite binoculars for spotting birds. He insisted on carrying his own little pack, stuffed with a stuffed bear and some crayons for drawing leaves. We drove out early that Saturday morning in July, the sun climbing lazy over the ridges, mist still hugging the hollows like a soft blanket. A trailhead was quiet, just off truck in the gravel lot, A wooden sign faded but welcome it. Echo Valley Loop. 4 miles, easy. He bound out the truck before it could unbuckle, laughing at the shoulder's back, with lit comedy oversized on a small frame. Go on, die, and be as he did first. A voice high and excited, echoed by feely from the trees he. A smile, like he does, healing a weird continue wash over me. The air is warm but not stifling, carrying a sweet scent of honeysuckle with fresh earth, the kind that promises a good day. The path started wide, gravel crunching under our sneakers, flanked by tall grasses waving in a light breeze. Tim skipped ahead, pointing out everything. A squirrel scampering up a trunk, a cluster of bluebells nodding by a trail. "Look, Dad, that's a robin," he'd yell, binoculars glued to his eyes. I kept pace a few steps behind, reminding to stay close, behind lead. We'd done shorter walks before, but this was his first real hike, and his enthusiasm was infectious. The valley opened up around us, gentle slopes rising either side, dotted with wallflowers and bursts of yellow and purple. Birds called overhead, their songs mingling with the distant hum of insects, creating a symphony of nature that draws out the world's moors. And even then, in those early moors, it was its own quiet Vanishhes, a stillness in a deeper woods that made the echoes feel a touch too sharp. We were walking about 20 minutes when the trail dipped into a shade section, a canopy thickening maples and oaks, their leaves filtering sunlight into dappled pairs on grow. Tim chattered on about school, of wanted to be a ranger when he grew up, protect the elves. Like you protect cars, Dad, but for bears. I chuckled, ruffling his hair very slow to wait for me. The path was marked well here, orange blazes fresh on the trees, but as we went further, they started to fade, paint chipped and weathered, stubs of color barely visible against the bark. I didn't think much of it. Trails like this get maintained sporadically, volunteers doing what they can. The valley's namesake echoes grew stronger too, our voices bouncing back with a delay that made Tim giggle. "Lou!" each shot, and Valley would answer, faint and distorted. We stopped for a snack by a small stream, water trickling clear over pebbles. Tim dipped his hands in, splashing playfully. I humpat the shoulders, watching them with the acre law only apparent nose, especially when doing the loon. The air court slate and the shade, a light mist warded from the street, tearing the earthy dampness that cleaved to your clothes. No other hikers passed, it was just us, the isolation feeling cozy rather than lonely. Pushing on after I break, the trail forked speckly, a wide path where Matt showed a straight shot, Berusian something blurred. The markers hill at worst yet, fade into near invisibility, through suds and peeking to lichen. Ten them lows, too busy spotting the lunar darth earth in the air. "Look, Dad, it's huge." He dared it left down the narrower branch, his little legs pumping, back pad bouncing. "Wait up," he yelled back, mimicking what I always said to him. I laughed, picking up my pace. "Slow down, buddy. Stay where I can see you." The path twisted through denser underbrush now, ferns brushing my caves. The valley was rising steeper on the lift, echoing footsteps back and muffled thuds. I rounded a bend, expecting to see him just ahead, but the trail stretched empty, sunlight slatting through the trees in lazy beams. "Tim," I called, voice casual at first. No answer. The echoes came back, my own name, distant and mocking, like the valley was teasing. Quickened just a touch, I jogged forward, scanned sides. His footprints were clear as soft dirt, small sneaker treads leading straight, then ending abruptly. No scuff, no turn-off, just stopped mid-stride, as if he'd been lifted clean off the ground. The grunt beyond us, unmarred, smooth as it raked. Confusion like a splash of cold water. "Tim, where are you?" Loud now, stepping off the path, pushing through bushes that snagged no shirt. No sarn, no broken twigs, no cries. I circled back, heart pounding otter, yelling his name until the echoes overlapped, turning my panic into a chorus. The valley felt watchful then, the general slope suddenly oppressive, the wildflowers mocking in their chair. I combed the area, trailings apart ferns and peered under logs, imagined worst, and fall into a hidden ravine. Though the ground was flat, the mist from the stream had spread, coiling low like fingers, muffling sounds further. Tammy, my voice cracked, the echoes distorting it into something pleading far away. Hand folly gripped me now, breath so wide racing through possibilities. He won off chasing butterfly, got turned to run. As Prince into so shot, diversion no smothers. I ran back to fort, shotting, then forward again, with burning. A quiet pressed in, unbroken except for my gauze, no birds and insect, just that eerie stillness that makes a skin crawl. Old legends whispered in my head, stories from locals about the valleys forgotten, folks who vanished mid-step, claimed by a land's hidden pockets, maybe pharaoh hermits lurking in the hills, survivors of old mining camps gone mad from isolation. But those were bar tales, not real. Or were they? I was bored as I searched them all, back and forth along the path, venturing off-trail into thicker woods, thorns drawing blood on my arms. The sun climbed higher, but the valley shade kept it cool, sweat chilling on my skin. My phone had no signal. Of course, these mountains swallow bars like secrets. Finally, exhausted and hoarse, I stumbled back to the truck, driving like hail to the ranger station 10 miles away. Burst in babbling about my boy Bone, a foot press stopping. The rangers mobilized quick, canned folks, but their faces showed that grim knowledge of how these things go. We'll find him, the lead, a burly god named Caldwell, assured, clapping assured her. Black at the trailhead about noon, a team of 8 plus volunteers radio in. Dogs arrived soon after, eager blyhound sniffing Tim's stud bear from his pack, which I'd left behind in a haze. I led them to the spot, the fade markers marking now, the footprints still there, ending crisp. The dogs sent strong first, noses to ground, tails wagging. Then, at the abrupt end, they circled, whined, and sat, confused. The handlemer shaking there, trail vanishes me astride. They just poof. Search parties fanned out, El Cuffer stopping overhead, rose top in the air, stirring mist in the swirls. Ground teams calmed slopes, calling Tim's name in a grid pattern, echoes turning a valley into a cacophony. I joined, legs numb, voice gone, pointing out every bush that looked disturbed. Locals ride by afternoon, faces etched with sympathy, sharing coffee and stories over breaks. An elderly woman with cane pulled me aside. Echo Valley's got away, she whispered, eyes dirting. My great-uncle went missing here in the 50s. Chasing a rabbit, they said. Found his pipe on a branch, nothing else. Folks whisper at the Hinons, pharaohs of caves, lured kids away to God knows what. Words burr deep, that unspelled dread sound like fog. No evident pharaohs, no trats, no cant. In a quiet those, scour no shard soaps. I felt ours only, a brand's large foundation. A day wore on, sun dipping, shadows lengthening like accusations. Then Le Chau Fontaine Hill got something. My heart surged. They found his heart, Lou baseball cap with dorsal part, snugged on Lou branch, 50 yards off trail, untouched by weather, rim crease, cover end to its passion sonder, could blown at whence county. The search stitched in the eed, spotlight piercing dusk, voices calling until hoarse. Tent went up the trail lay, bass can hoon 3 years worry. I sleep the night, home sleeping bag, replaying his heel, in the path. What a great scene, if we tore away the fork. Down by Orhole, steep police, doors, us and angry bees. Dares take a stream, oh saw, nothing. Days blurred, headlines a local paper. Boy vanishes on family hike. Reporters up, hovered, mics thrust forward, but I waved them off, numb. Friends brought food, as teachers sent carve from classmates. The rangers expanded the rays, but hop fade with each MP report. After a week, rain hammered down, turning the valley to mud, forcing suspension. Welke vlukkem, Conwell pomofed, but five thav wise. Months turned to a year, lave a ho teen, welk, eat, sterile wall. Moved to a smart place, Tim's room untouched, as drawing still taped up. The dren never left, a ground whore the land claiming its own wine. The quiet builder of a perfect day shattered by impossibility. No beasts, no draw, just disappearance in broad daylight, realistic and ruthless. I've returned alone 3 times, tracing those faded markers, feeling the valley's watchful presence in every rustle, every echo. Stood at the spot, hat in hand, listening to the whispers in the wind, faint calls that sound like his lap, pulling at my sanity. What swallowed him? A sudden ravine masked by illusion, or something the mountains hide? Feral Santos, legends made fliss. The not knowing erodes, a lingering chill in the bones that no fire warms. These trails whisper of forgotten souls, drawing you deeper into their silent embrace. And I fear one day I'll follow, vanishing mid-stride, joining the echoes that mock from the slopes. The sorrow cleans, confusion a constant companion, leaving me adrift in a world where normalcy hides voids, waiting to claim the unwary.